So that's going to do it for this witness who was there to talk about how he processed the victim's car. And you saw at that one point where he identified a shell casing from a .40 caliber gun inside the victim's car. So we're speculating, how did it eject from the gun and land there? He was that close when he fired a shot. He apparently shot more than once, only one striking the victim. All he needed was one. It hit her either in the back of the head or the back of the neck and killed her almost immediately. Then it looked like maybe even some stains of some sort in the front right passenger floorboard area. Again, this witness there primarily to talk about the car in general and the finding of that shell casing there. Judge William Dawson is with me. Judge, again, since we're focusing in this case on the person who set this whole thing in motion, maybe not as much detail about the crime itself is critical, but I don't remember this detail from the first crime and case against Christopher Love. What is the jury doing with this in the context of the overall case?
Well, I think with this particular testimony, it's just, like you said, setting the groundwork as to what the investigation revealed. And I'm glad they didn't really have him on that long. They just really wanted to establish that scene, the fact that that shell casing was found there, that the crime took place in that location, that the blood was still there. So I think in this particular situation, they just really set a nice little groundwork as to the crime scene. And it wasn't maybe necessary in the first trial because he's the murderer. We know that. But here you're just trying to set up exactly how it happened. This young lady was murdered at her car by this person, and it was set up by Delgado.
Yeah, I mean, definitely the murder took place. Nobody's disputing that. And we should point out that Crystal Cortez, the getaway person, the wheel man, woman, person, she didn't get away scot-free. She did testify in the first case, and she's doing 35 years. So she made a deal on her own. Generally, under the felony murder rule, she could have gone down for the same sentence that Christopher Love suffered. So she made herself a deal. She's probably not going to get out of prison, but she's alive. So, Judge, let me ask you this, too. As we move through this case, would you expect in any world that the defendant is going to testify?
I don't think so. I can't imagine that she would testify at this point. And I'll tell you, it's really interesting, and I think this goes to note for the general public, the fact that that getaway driver, initially I understood that she said, well, we were there to rob her, and then it was a mistake. She was killed by mistake, and then she changed her story when she actually testified. It goes to show you that just being in a car could wind you up with 35 years of your life taken away. So you need to be careful about who you're hanging with and what you're involved in. You better be very careful about that.
Well, when I think about this in the friends that were brought into this by the defendant, Brenda Delgado, you just got to wonder, where do these people come from? This is a woman that's convinced, hey, just, get this guy I've got who's going to rob and kill the girlfriend of my ex-boyfriend, and again, figure out where she comes and goes, follow her for a week, maybe 2 weeks till you get an opportunity to take her out. Oh, don't worry, I'll give you like $500 in drugs and money. Great, sign me up. Judge, I mean, you see people come and go through your courtroom. Are you surprised at just the level of humanity that is involved in things like this?
I must say that I am not surprised. I mean, we're finding that there are people who do some very heinous acts for very little. $500, some drugs, some alcohol, and you'll do something this serious because no one is really thinking it all the way through. You're taking someone's life, you're risking your entire life, and most times you're not going to get away with it. But I don't think people are really calculating that when they're making these crazy decisions.
So you're saying not the brightest person. Okay.
Not the brightest person.
I think I get the translation there. Okay, the jury is on a break in the case we're following out of Texas, the Brenda Delgado case. So let's take a look back at some of the earlier testimony. Let's go back into the courtroom. So you want some drugs, maybe some money, just take a needle, stick it right in the back of Kendra Hatcher's neck, and, just get her out of the way, put her out of action. So that was at least two efforts that the defendant, Brenda Delgado, made in attempting to get somebody to help her get rid of her rival. And, of course, we know Christopher Love ultimately said yes and did so. Judge William Dawson is with me. Judge, when you hear the detail that was asked of these folks who said no, thankfully, to this task that Brenda Delgado laid out, how bad does that make Brenda Delgado look?
It makes her look terrible. You have people who are close to her, her family and friends, who are saying, hey, this woman came to us and actually asked us to commit a crime. So it really makes her look bad. They're not mincing any words. They're not trying to cover up. So they pretty much put it exactly how it was.
And it seems to me, if we go back to the relationship between the defendant, Brenda Delgado, and her ex-boyfriend, Ricardo, I think it's pronounced Paniagua, they had an off and on relationship. I don't know if you remember hearing this or not, Judge, but basically they broke up, and then there he is right there. The ex-boyfriend was having salsa lessons, and bing, a couple of weeks later, the defendant shows up, not like she's stalking or anything. Anyway, convinces him to get back together. He seems like a very nice guy. So they get back together in October of, I think the year was 14, because this occurred in September of 15. So between October 2014 and February 2015, they're back together again. I know why, though, because he's a nice guy. Nobody breaks up during the holidays. He probably, found out very quickly this is not working. I should have known the first time. And he decides to get rid of her. So what impact, if any, to help this defendant does it give that, they got back together, that even this nice doctor didn't see she was totally evil?
I don't think it helps her at all. If anything, like you said, it seems like he's a nice guy. And it doesn't really help her because it shows that she's the one that's kind of unstable. She wants to be back together. She won't let him go. So he kind of just says, okay, let's date again. I don't really think it helps her too much unless they were trying to, stage some other defense where she was temporarily insane or something like that, sick in love or something like that. But just generally, I don't think it helps at all.
Yeah. And no guy breaks up during the holidays, right? I mean, Judge, let me see. No, I would never do that. Okay, let's go back into the courtroom for the nice guy, the guy who's, again, reliving this horrible part of his life. This is Dr. Ricardo Paniagua. You can just feel for this guy. Yeah, that's Richard Paniagua. He is the ex-boyfriend, really the center of the storm here that involves the defendant, Brenda Delgado, and his new girlfriend, killed allegedly at the request of Brenda Delgado. Kendra Hatcher is a lovely dentist there in the Dallas area, just beginning her professional life. Judge William Dawson is with me. Let me ask you, Judge, this is a guy we've seen go through this twice now, this painful display of his testimony, reliving this event. If you're going to cross this guy, what are you looking for? You don't want to make it worse on him. The jury's going to watch you, but what are you looking for?
You're really looking for him to show some type of, not necessarily sympathy for the defendant, but at least to show that she has a soft side, that there's some human element to her, at least the one that he decided to date. So that's what you're hoping to look for, that maybe he can show some type of soft side, or the fact that she's not a monster, even though these allegations are monstrous. So that's really what you're hoping to get from him.
Speaking of a soft side, just as an aside here, they had to bring a motion to allow the defendant to wear makeup at trial because apparently in Texas that's a no-no, so they got the okay for that. Hey, Judge, I'm going to have to let you go. I appreciate your time today. As always, Judge William Dawson, thank you, sir. I look forward to our next get-together. All rise.
Absolutely.
The judge is going to be leaving now. Take care.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, we'll be back in just a few minutes here right on the Law and Crime Network. We're in Texas live in the case against Brenda Delgado. Stay right where you are. See you soon.